Okay, people, this is going to be long, but I need to get this off my chest. The recent events in my family have been extremely upsetting, but to understand why, you must first understand the context. I am 33 years old, and I grew up with my younger brother Alex, who is 30 years old, in what appeared to be a normal household from the outside. But gosh, the dynamics in our house were severely off. See, Alex was a miraculous baby. Mom had a difficult pregnancy with him, and he was quite sick for the first couple of years, in and out of the hospital, breathing problems, infections, the entire thing. I recall sitting in hospital waiting rooms a lot as a child. I understand that having a sick child is scary, but even when Alex recovered, my parents, particularly my father, continued to treat him as if he were made of glass. Meanwhile, I was expected to be the perfect, responsible elder brother who should know better about everything. Could Alex miss school? He needed to recuperate. Alex failed a class? He has been through a lot. Alex broke something expensive? Don't be upset with your brother. What about me? Before we continue with today's story, if you're enjoying what you've heard so far, please hit that subscribe button. Every new subscriber helps me keep sharing these inspiring tales that touch your day. Thank you for your support. From the age of 7, I was expected to obtain excellent grades, never say anything back, work around the house, and overall act like a small grown-up. The double standard was ridiculous. I recall one incident in high school when I received detention for being late to class and was grounded for a week. That same month, Alex was caught skipping school to hang out with his friends at the mall, and my parents had just spoken with him about it. When I was 15, I started working with my father in his electrical business. Not because I was particularly interested in becoming an electrician, but because it was the only way I could obtain his attention or acceptance. And you know what? I actually grew better at it, very good. I began learning everything I could about electrical work, staying late to watch Dad handle the difficult tasks, reading manuals, and watching YouTube videos to learn more. Meanwhile, Alex remained, well, Alex. He was a smart kid when he wanted to be, but he lacked a work ethic. He could enchant everyone with his sad little ill kid routine, which he never outgrew. He attempted college for about 2 semesters, got out because it was too stressful, began an online business selling dropship trash that flopped, and then tried to be a day trader, losing a lot of his father's money. But nevertheless, I was still the one receiving lectures about supporting your brother and putting family first. I won't lie, it made me feel a strange mix of hatred and responsibility. I liked my brother because he was my brother, but I couldn't tolerate being around him most of the time. We were complete opposites. I was the serious, hardworking person who valued keeping my word and doing things well. He was the fun one who never faced repercussions and believed regulations were for other people. Dad's business was dependable, basic home electrical work, some small commercial work. Nothing special, but it paid the bills. I saw potential in it, however. When I wasn't working, I was studying new technologies, smart home systems, and security installations. Dad was old school, preferring to do things the way he'd always done them, but I insisted on modernizing and taking on larger projects. The strange thing is that even when I brought in new clients or completed large projects flawlessly, Dad would find a way to credit Alex. Your brother's charm really helps with customer relations. He answered phones sometimes. Alex has such good ideas for the business. He suggested we get a website in 2020. I moved out as soon as I could afford it. I moved into my own place around 20 minutes from my parents' house. Close enough to help with the business, but far enough away to have some space. I felt I was doing fairly well, you know? I had my own place, made decent money, and was learning new skills. I was even considering getting my master electrician license and having my own business someday. Sophie, a 29-year-old female, and I met around 6 years ago while working on a large rewiring job at these upscale flats downtown. She was the property manager there. The first time I saw her, she was arguing with some HVAC technicians about their substandard work, getting into the technical specifics of why their installation was not up to code. I recall thinking, damn, she actually knows her stuff. Most property managers I dealt with wanted things done cheaply and quickly, but Sophie was different. She had read through all of the electrical codes and knew exactly what she wanted done. For the first few weeks on the job, she kept coming around to inspect our work, not in an irritating way, but because she truly wanted to know what we were doing and why. I began taking lunch breaks when I realized she'd be making her rounds. We'd discuss the project first, then about other topics. She told me about growing up with her father, a general contractor, and how she learned everything about construction by helping him on assignments. I informed her about my desire to update my father's business and potentially grow into more commercial work. She was simple to chat to, right? I could rave about my family turmoil, and she understood. Her brother was also the beloved kid, a hotshot lawyer who could do no wrong. We joked about forming a support group for responsible siblings. After we finished the apartment job, I assumed that was it. But about a week later, she called the office to report an urgent electrical problem in her own apartment. Dad asked me to check it out. It turned out there was nothing wrong. She just wanted to see me again. I have to say that was a really nice maneuver. We began dating after that. Sophie was different from the other girls I dated. She did not play games or expect me to read her mind. If something bothered her, she would simply express it. If she were happy, you would know. She also showed genuine interest in my job. She'd help me study for my license examinations and eventually started assisting with the business side of things. Within a year, she was effectively running our business, having implemented a new scheduling system, upgraded our invoicing, and prepared actual contracts in place of the handwritten quotes we used to use. Dad was initially unhappy about it. He preferred doing everything on paper, but he had to acknowledge the firm was functioning more smoothly. I finally felt like I was creating something real. We moved in together after 2 years and started talking about marriage and even having children someday. Sophie would joke about our future children becoming electricians and carrying on the family business. Man, I thought I had everything sorted out. The weird part is that my family liked her at first. Mom was continually calling us over for supper, asking Sophie for assistance with computer issues, or soliciting her advice on house renovations. Even Dad warmed up to her once he realized how much she was contributing to the company's growth. We were gaining larger contracts, doing more commercial work, and establishing a solid reputation in the area. Sophie got along well with Alex, too. When I became irritated with his latest unsuccessful attempt, she would defend him, telling me that I should try to understand his point of view better and how growing up unwell might have influenced him. Looking back, I should have recognized that as a red flag, but you know how it is when you really trust someone. You do not want to see the signs. We became engaged after 4 years together, nothing spectacular. I proposed at home after we finished the massive project we had been working on together. She'd been helping me plan this large electrical renovation for a nearby hospital, staying up late with me to go over blueprints and deal with contractors. It just felt right, you know? As if we were true partners in everything. Around a year ago, things began to change. Alex had spent another chunk of Dad's money trying to launch a cryptocurrency trading business, returned home bankrupt, and Dad offered him a job in our office. Just the basics. Answering phones, filing papers, and organizing appointments. It should have been simple enough, but Alex always managed to screw it up. Sophie began spending more time at my parents' place, assisting Mom with wedding preparations and such. She stated it was easier to focus on company documents there while Alex was learning the procedures. I was working most days, so it made sense at the time. Following that, everything began to spiral out of control. I began to notice subtle changes about 8 months before everything blew up. Nothing big at first, just minor details that didn't line up. Sophie was spending more time at my parents' house, helping with business matters. She explained that she was educating Alex on our new billing system and assisting Mom with wedding plans. Makes sense, right? I was out on jobs most days, working my tail off to save money for our future. We planned the entire wedding and talked about buying a property. I wanted to do things correctly. But then other things started happening. Sophie changed her phone's password. She has never actually hidden her phone before. We knew each other's passwords. It was no big problem, but she started acting strangely about it. She explained that her banking app required her to update security or something. Whatever. I absolutely trusted her, so I didn't think much of it. Then Alex began acting differently. He began wearing cologne at work. Dude used to turn up half the time in the same clothes as yesterday. He got all this new clothing and started showing up to work on time, which was unusual for him. He was also strangely polite to me, volunteering to stay late at the office and expressing a strong desire to study business. Sophie was talking about him differently. Alex is really getting good at handling the scheduling, or your brother's actually pretty smart when he applies himself. She'd get angry whenever I complained about his messing something up and even started taking his side in family disputes. The atmosphere in the office also became strange. Janet, our receptionist for the past 15 years, was like a second mother to us. She began giving me these looks while Sophie and Alex were working late together, but whenever I asked what was going on, she would simply say nothing and change the subject. Once, I returned to the office early from a task because we had run out of materials. Sophie and Alex were in the break room, giggling over something. There was nothing clearly wrong, but they both jumped as if they had been caught doing something when I stepped in. Sophie mentioned that they were just going over some invoices, around 7 p.m., right? Sophie seemed to talk less about our future. She used to be quite enthused about wedding planning, looking at houses online, and discussing what kind of family we'd have. Then she became quiet about it all. She claimed she was just anxious about work. The true red flag I missed was when she stopped visiting job sites to check on projects. It used to be our thing. She'd bring lunch, we'd go over plans, and solve problems together. But she was suddenly too busy at work with Alex. We had a large family meal approximately 6 months ago. Sophie was acting funny all night, barely speaking and constantly checking her phone. Alex kept attempting to make inside jokes with her. Sophie snorted with laughter when he mentioned that insane person at work, but when I questioned what was hilarious, they both said, "You had to be there." After dinner, on the way home, I finally brought it up. Sophie remained, glancing at her phone. "You okay? You seemed off tonight." "Just tired. Work's been crazy." "Yeah, it seems like you and Alex are getting along better these days." She tightened up, but tried to keep it casual. "He's not as bad as you always say. He's actually pretty funny when you get to know him." "Funny enough to make you ignore everyone else at dinner?" "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just that you've been different lately. Distant. Always on your phone." She became defensive quickly. "Oh, so I'm not allowed to have my own conversations now. Everything has to be about you." That threw me off guard. Sophie never spoke to me like that before. "That's not what I said. Just feels like something's changed. Maybe you're just paranoid. I'm tired of you always complaining about Alex. He's trying his best." I recall getting a horrible feeling in my stomach, as if something was seriously wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. She had never defended Alex like that before. "Since when are you Team Alex?" "Since I actually got to know him instead of just listening to you bashing him all the time." We drove the rest of the way silently. Man, all the symptoms were there. The protective attitude, the phone, the inside jokes, the way she suddenly thought Alex was fantastic. But you never want to believe someone you absolutely trust could do that to you, especially not your own brother. I recall lying there that night, watching her try to sleep and thinking, "Nah, I'm just being paranoid." The next several months were just more of the same. Sophie was working late, Alex was becoming interested in the business, and me being a complete idiot working 12-hour days to save for our future while my brother was stealing my girlfriend right under my nose. Then came the day when everything burst. It was Tuesday, I recall, because I was working on a large commercial project that involved rewiring a warehouse. Sophie called about 2 p.m., crying so hard I couldn't hear her. She claimed she needed to speak with me in person and that it was urgent. My immediate impression was that something had happened to her parents. I told my colleagues that I had a family emergency and drove straight home. I discovered her sitting in her car in our driveway. She refused to come inside, instead sitting there gripping the steering wheel as if it were the only thing holding her together. I sat in the passenger seat, waiting for her to say anything. "I'm pregnant," she explained. For a few seconds, all I felt was happiness. We discussed starting a family after the wedding, and suddenly it was happening. I started talking about how we'd work things out and how we could move the wedding up if necessary. She kept crying. "There's more," she said, choking. "It might not be yours." Everything within me became still. My brain initially refused to accept it, as if I needed to repeat it to ensure that I had heard her correctly. "Might not be mine." My voice sounded strange, as if it weren't even mine. "Who else would it be?" I paused. It all connected at once. The late nights, the sudden secrecy with her phone, and the strange discomfort whenever I mentioned it. "No." I gazed at her, waiting for her to deny it and tell me I was wrong. She did not. "It's not him," she said. My hands tightened into fists. "Sophie." My voice was strong and demanding. "Tell me it's not Alex." She made a broken sound in her throat. "It wasn't supposed to happen." I gave a harsh laugh, but there was no comedy in it. "Oh, right, you just tripped and fell into my brother's bed?" "It wasn't like that," she replied hastily. "It was one time." I shut her off. "One time." My head was pounding. "Tell me the truth." "Nothing but quiet." "How long?" Her breathing sounded unsteady. 3 months, maybe 4. I had to press my hands on my knees to keep myself steady. Does he know? My voice was tight and controlled. She nodded. I told him yesterday. That's when I realized I had to tell you too. I stared at her as if she wanted me to be relieved she had finally decided to come clean. I got out of the car because I needed air. She followed me, attempting to explain how it wasn't planned, how horrible they both felt, and how they had ended it weeks before. All I could think about was them laughing in the break room during those late-night work sessions. Were you ever going to tell me if you weren't pregnant? She did not respond to that. It explained all I needed to know. I hopped into my truck and drove directly to my folks' place. I found Alex in the office, dozing as usual. When he saw my face, he knew I knew. Listen, bro, I can explain. I don't remember what happened next. It's all a blur, but I recall him on the ground with blood gushing from his nose. Dad and 2 of our employees were pushing me away from him. Alex began ranting about how I was crazy, how Sophie had come on to him first, and how they were in love. In love? My own brother? The guy who'd seen me plan my future with this lady and sat there at Sunday dinners knowing exactly what he was doing? Dad got between us, tried to calm everyone down, and told us we had to address this like adults. That's when Alex released the next bombshell. She's having my baby. You can't just ignore that. Dad's face turned white. I guess he wasn't aware of that portion yet. Mom began crying. Janet grabbed her purse and walked away. I found out later that she quit that day, saying she couldn't work for people like them. I glanced at my father and said, "He's your problem now. I'm done." Dad attempted to stop me, saying, "Son, wait. We can figure this out. Family is family." I told him. Alex ceased being my family the moment he touched my fiancée. I walked out and haven't returned since. Sophie was still at our house when I arrived home. She was sitting on the couch, crying after packing her bags. "I never meant to hurt you," she explained. "It just got complicated." I informed her she had 24 hours to grab her belongings and leave. I didn't care where she went. Block my number. Lose my address. "What about the baby?" she inquired. "Better hope it's Alex's, because if it's mine, we're doing a DNA test and going through lawyers." She tried to speak more, but I walked away. I drove to my friend Mike's apartment and stayed for a few days while she moved out. So after everything happened, I remained at my friend Mike's house for approximately a week. I turned off my phone. I simply needed to comprehend everything. Mike is a real one. Didn't try to offer counsel or anything. Simply let me crash. When I eventually put my phone back on, I had about 50 missed calls, the majority of which were from my parents, some from Sophie, and a couple from Alex. This dude has some nerve. But I only listened to Mom's messages. She was crying in the majority of them, pleading with me to come talk to Dad, who claimed to have a solution. I should have known Dad's answer would be manipulative nonsense, but I went anyway, primarily because Mom sounded so distraught. Walking into that house was strange. I found everyone in the living room. Mom looked like she hadn't slept for days. Dad sat in his normal recliner, looking serious, as if he were preparing to give one of his lectures. Alex was also there with a lovely bruised nose. I'm not going to lie, that felt amazing to see. Dad cleared his throat and smacked me with a bombshell. "Son, I've been thinking about how to resolve this situation in a way that benefits everyone. Since you're clearly not willing to work things out with Sophie, and given her condition, I think it makes sense for her and Alex to get married." I actually laughed. I literally laughed in his face. But he wasn't finished. "Furthermore, since they'll be starting a family, I think it's appropriate for Alex to take over the business. With Sophie's experience running the office and Alex learning the trade, they could." "Alex learning the trade?" I interrupted him. "He can't even wire a basic outlet without supervision." Dad had the same look he typically does when someone disturbs him. "Language. And your brother has shown real interest in learning. In fact, I want you to train him." Guys, I lost it. I started laughing again, but it was the kind of insane chuckle you get when something is so twisted up that you can't process it. "Let me get this straight," I remarked. "You want me to train the brother who screwed my fiancée to take over the business I helped build while they're married and raising a kid that might be mine? Are you actually insane?" Mom began crying again. Alex simply sat there, staring at the floor like a coward. Dad took out his final card. "This business is still in my name. If you won't help your brother, maybe you should find somewhere else to work." That's when I realized all those years of hard work had been for nothing. All of my hard work, the business I brought in, and the reputation I earned were insignificant in comparison to precious Alex's latest blunder. I just got up and headed to the door. Mom tried to stop me, but I just said, "I'm done. Good luck with your new golden team." Alex eventually spoke up. "Bro, wait." I turned around and simply stated, "Call me bro again, and I'll break more than your nose." Dad raged at me about loyalty and second chances. I did not even look back. The next day, I began calling all of our big clients, including those with whom I had personal relationships. I informed them that I was departing and offered some other reputable contractors they could work with. Dad called, yelling about how I was attempting to damage the business. I told him I was only informing my clients that I would no longer be handling their jobs. It's not my responsibility if they don't want to work with his new ideal team. Alex and Sophie genuinely agreed to the entire thing. They married at the courthouse 2 weeks later, as if it were a love story rather than a total betrayal. Dad even backed them up, giving them a down payment on a house as a reward for what they'd done. Meanwhile, I was left standing amid the ruins of all I believed I knew. There was no apology, no meaningful consequences, only the expectation that I move on while they played happy family. So I did. I walked away from it all. I took a position with one of our old competitors where my work was respected rather than being treated as an afterthought. Better income, genuine recognition, and best of all, no family drama. I pushed everything into starting over and developing my own reputation. I even acquired my master electrician license, something Dad always claimed I wasn't ready for. Turns out I was more than prepared. I just had to get out of his shadow to prove it. I didn't hear much about the family business for approximately 4 months. Mom would occasionally text me, but I requested her not to inform me about Alex or Sophie. I didn't need the stress in my life. Then last week, I received a call from Mom at approximately 11 p.m. She started crying again, claiming Dad needed to talk to me right away. I almost hung up, but she seemed quite disturbed. "Please," she asked. "I know you have every right to say no, but we're about to lose everything." I was truly curious and remained on the line. Dad came on, and his voice was different, not the typical "I know everything" tone. He sounded broken. It turns out that allowing Alex to run the business was exactly the nightmare I predicted. This genius screwed up 3 large commercial jobs so badly that one customer has threatened to sue us for code violations. I'm talking about fundamental things like incorrect gauge wiring, missing ground wires, and junction boxes put without covers, mistakes that may practically burn a building down. And things get better. Instead of recruiting qualified electricians, he appointed his drinking buddy from college as chief electrician. The guy's whole electrical experience involved changing light bulbs in his flat. No license, no credentials, and probably couldn't tell the difference between a voltage meter and a screwdriver. They run a real professional operation there. Then there's the monetary side. Alex reportedly neglected to pay their liability insurance. Consider this, you're in the electrical company. They'd lose everything with one accident or fire. But hey, why spend money on frivolous things like insurance when you can pocket the cash instead? Because that's exactly what he was doing, accepting cash payments from customers while conveniently failing to record them in the books. And the financial genius had been taking out loans against the firm without informing Dad, multiple loans. We're talking significant money here. And the best part? Nobody can figure out where all that money went. Nothing in his bank account, nothing in his investments. It all vanished like magic. I'm betting his new car and the luxury clothes he's been wearing could be a hint. It's almost impressive how thoroughly he ruined everything in just a few months. Dad spent 30 years building this firm, and Alex virtually destroyed it in less than half a year. That's what happens when you give over a profitable business to someone whose greatest accomplishment was becoming the beer pong team captain in college. Dad finally found out when their insurance was canceled, and he began looking into the books. Alex had been concealing all of the difficulties by tampering with the papers, as Sophie had taught him during all of those late hours at work. Most of their seasoned members quit. I can't blame them. Alex treated them poorly, and checks began to bounce. Janet, our previous receptionist, evidently tried to notify Dad about strange activity in the accounts months ago, but he refused to listen. Dad's voice was shaking as he told me all of this, and then he slapped me with, "I need you to come back. Help me fix this. We can make you majority owner, give you full control." I told him that I needed to think about it. He started to become desperate. "Please, we're going to lose everything. The business, the house, everything I built. Your mother, she's not handling this well. Then he played his last card. Alex and Sophie split up. She left last week, just disappeared, left a note saying not to contact her. The baby, we don't even know where she is. Alex wasn't daddy material after all. My response was, not my circus, not my monkeys anymore. Dad began with his typical guilt trip about family and devotion. I cut him off. Remember when I begged you not to give the business to Alex? When I told you he'd run it into the ground? What was it you said? Oh yeah, family is family. Well, this is your family's mess now. Mom called back, weeping about how they might be homeless soon. That hit hard. Mom did not deserve any of this. She's the only one who's ever attempted to keep the family together, the only one who hasn't taken sides, even when she probably should have. I told her she may come and stay with me at any moment. It's just her, not Dad, not Alex. I can't leave your father, she explained. I exhaled. Then that's your choice, Mom. But my door is only open for you. It sucks knowing she would never go through with it. A few days later, Sophie texted me. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I need help. The baby's yours. I got the test results. Alex took all my money and disappeared. Please, I don't have anywhere else to go. I read it, stared at it, and set my phone down. Did not respond, not going to. But damn if it didn't sit there like a stone in my gut, like a punch I knew was coming but couldn't handle. It should have meant something. It should have been life-changing, but all I felt was tiredness, as if I had finally climbed out of this mess just to have it reach back and try to drag me under again. And for the first time, I didn't know what to do. Dad showed up at my place last night while I was still trying to figure out what was going on. There was no notice, simply standing there when I arrived home from work, looking grungy, wearing an old jacket I recall from my childhood. Hadn't shaven in what seemed like weeks. First thing I noticed was that he was driving Mom's old Civic rather than his truck. Later, they discovered that they needed to sell their truck to pay off some of the business's debts. Can we talk? He requested, not demanding as usual. He truly sounded exhausted. I invited him in because I really wanted him to see how I was doing without his assistance. My new house is quite nice. I received it following my last promotion. Nothing spectacular, but it's mine. I earned it myself. He stood in my living room, looking bewildered, as if he didn't know how to communicate with me other than by delivering commands. Finally, he sat down and began pouring everything out. The business is essentially dead. They're being sued by 2 business clients over Alex's rubbish work. After that, the majority of their home customers abandoned them, complaining about jobs that were left unfinished. The bank is coming to the house next month. I should have listened to you, he explained. This is the first time I've ever heard him confess to being incorrect about anything. I told him that it was good to hear, but it was late. Then he took out this folder. Inside, there were papers to transfer 100% ownership of the company to me with no strings attached. You can save it, he replied. You always knew what you were doing. I was just too proud to see it. Do you know what is crazy? 6 months ago, this would have been everything I wanted. All that validation, finally having power, and Dad admitting I was correct. But while glancing at those papers, I wondered what happened to Alex. Dad's face simply crumpled. Alex cleared out their savings account last week and disappeared. Left this note about needing to find himself or some BS. Classic Alex. Causes a mess and then flees from the consequences. He's still your brother, Dad explained calmly. No, I replied. He stopped being my brother the day he decided family loyalty meant nothing to him. Sound familiar? That struck him hard. Good. He began telling me how he could help me restore the firm, how we could collaborate and be a genuine family again. I had to laugh. Dad, you're not hearing me. I don't want the business. I don't want your help. I'm done. But this is your legacy too. Everything we built. Everything I built. You gave to Alex, remember? You chose him, even after he slept with my fiancée. Now you get to live with that choice. He tried guilt-tripping me again about Mom's anguish over the family falling apart. I told him the same thing as before. She's welcome here anytime. Just her. She won't leave me, he said. Then that's her choice. And living with the consequences of your actions, that's yours. He sat for a long time before asking quietly, where did I go wrong? I wanted to lay it all out. All the years of favoritism, the continual justifications for Alex, how he discarded someone who genuinely cared about the business for someone who regarded it as a piggy bank to rob. But what's the point? You didn't go wrong, Dad. You got exactly what you always wanted, Alex being in charge. How's that working out? He left shortly thereafter. He looked around 20 years older walking out than when he walked in. I received a text from Mom this morning. They'll be moving in with her sister in Ohio next month. Dad is going to try to find a job there. She asked me once more if I would contemplate assisting them in their stay here. I informed her that my offer stood. She is welcome to stay with me at any moment, but I am tired of burning myself on fire to keep others warm. Sophie still sends texts concerning the baby. I advised her to call my lawyer. I haven't heard from Alex. Do not expect to. You know what's weird? I imagined that witnessing them lose everything would be satisfying, as if karma was punishing them for what they had done to me. But honestly, I don't feel anything, nor pleased, nor sad, just finished. I began dating someone new last month, taking it slowly. She asked about my family, and I simply stated that we are not close. Maybe someday I'll tell her the whole tale, but for now, I'm focused on creating my own life. There is no drama, no toxic familial BS, and no attempting to gain favor that never comes. I informed Sophie that everything would now be handled by lawyers. Will I be present for my child? Yeah, I am not my brother. I do not abandon my responsibilities. But Sophie destroyed that bridge. We'll work out custody and support through the courts. She made her choices, and now she must live with the consequences, just like everyone else in this mess. For the time being, I'm simply trying to keep my head straight, focusing on work, my new relationship, and creating something unique to me. Some nights, I lie awake thinking about how messed up it is that my children will be born into all of this drama. But you can't undo other people's mistakes. You can only strive to follow your conscience. Sometimes, the best vengeance is simply living well. This is the last section, guys. Thank you for following along. Writing it all out truly helped me sort through some of my thoughts. Edit. Since people keep asking, yes, if Sophie can show the baby exists and is mine, I will step forward, but only through legal means, no direct interaction. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.